India throws out 26,000 tons of plastic every single day. And while we already recycle over 60% of it, the remaining 40%, around 10,000 tons per day, goes completely uncollected, ending up in landfills, waterways, or littered directly into the environment. Because the problem was never really about recycling, but the system surrounding it. In part one, Dr. Joshi broke down the systems problem. We talked about how the rules have changed from the 2016 plastic waste management rules to the single use plastic bans to the brand new solid waste management rules that kicked in this April 2026. We got into the 7 types of plastic, why what happens in your kitchen bin matter more than any recycling machine downstream. Today we talk about solutions, business models, real opportunities, what UN Plastic Treaty actually means for companies doing business here in India, and what this country needs to pull off between now and 2047. Dr. Samir Joshi is a chairman of Indian Plastic Institute. He has sat the UN treaty negotiations. He holds a Guinness World Record for the world's largest t-shirt stitched together from recycled bottles. And his PhD thesis, The Role of Stakeholders in Plastic Waste Management, is really the blueprint for everything we are going to discuss today. Let's get into it.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, very good morning. It's a Sunday. We are recording the second part with Dr. Samir Joshi. Just as a quick recap of what we have covered in the part one. So in part one, we spoke about how plastic waste is not just a recycling problem. It's really a systems problem involving government, industry, consumers, and recyclers, every stakeholder in the entire supply chain. Dr. Samir Joshi also walked us through how India's plastic waste rules and EPR policies have evolved and why the real shift has to be from seeing waste as a burden to seeing it as a resource. We also touched on the basics, the different types of plastics, why segregation at source matters so importantly, and why responsibility at entry level is key to making the systems work. So with that context in place, let's move to the part two and talk about solutions, the opportunities, and what it really takes to build a circular economy around plastics. Dr. Samir Joshi, thank you so much for giving us some more of your time, and welcome to the podcast.
Oscar again.
It is an absolute pleasure to have you for the round two. I think there is much more to cover. So we'll take over from where we last left, right? So we were talking about EPR policies that has seen its entry in India, how it is impacting how businesses have to function. So let me begin with this question today. That is, if you strip away all the jargons, what is the basic business model of a plastic recycler in India today? How does the money actually come from, and what are the biggest cost drivers for them?
So the first part, going back to the basic, every day or alternate day or what, in our house, in our apartment, in our bungalow, a person comes to collect our waste. One is dry waste, second one is wet waste.
Right.
We call her or him as the kachra wala. I have learned a lesson. The kachra wala wo nahi hai, hum hai.
The ones who produce it.
Basic thing, माँ कचरा वाला आया है, हम कचरा वाले हैं, वो तो अपना कचरा इकट्ठा करना है.
Yeah.
That person who has come to collect the waste, he or she will take it down to the place where they collect it, segregate the wet and the dry waste. Dry waste has metal, plastic, rubber, a lot of things. And I stay in the city of Pune, and where till now the rule is that the tradition is that a vehicle from the municipal corporation will come and pick up the dry waste and the wet waste. But now the new rules are that the wet waste in a society has to be managed by itself, composting. Yep. And the dry waste is taken to the facility called as the Material Recovery Center, MRF, where it is further segregated and sent for recycling or end-of-life applications like burying it in the ground or sending it to cement kiln. The dry waste collected there, if we consider the plastic part, then that goes to various systems. That is one route. The second one, we see the Santa Claus of recycling, as I said, the rack picker or the waste picker with a sack on or her back going around the city. He or she will collect the bottles of the plastics and at the end of the day, go to a kabadi wala. It's a small shop. And there, like how we are used to selling our paper, raddi jo bolte hai. they will
Mhm.
sell it to him or her for certain year. And that's how they make money, 100, 200, 300 rupees a day. That kabadi, that small shop is a part of the value chain, and then he'll sell it to a bigger one who will in turn sell it to an aggregator, and that aggregator will finally sell it to a recycler. So that's the entire value chain. And when the recycler gets that material, he will again do the further sorting. So sorting has been done, but even after that, some sorting is needed.
Right.
And after that, he will recycle it into pellets, जो लोकल लिंगो में दाना बोलते हैं, प्लास्टिक का दाना.
Right.
And he will supply it in the further value chain to a molder or a bag manufacturer, where it will be recycled to some another product or some another form. So that
Mhm.
is the base value chain in recycling. And when the EPR comes, so the brands come. So the brands are mandated to come collect back their plastic. Brand is not going to do that. Brand is going to produce the product. They will appoint agencies to collect back the plastics. And the EPR says it's brand neutral. Suppose you put 100 bottles of a drink in a city per day, you collect those 100 bottles per day, which are brand neutral. So
Right.
that's collecting % waste. And the new EPR laws mandate,
Mhm.
this is 26 and second year, that first year it was 30%. Now from the second year, April is 40%. That compulsory 30-40% of recycled material has to be
To
used
be.
for packaging,
Mm.
which is for non-food contact. That's how the recycling industry will need good feedstock, and the EPR, the extended producer's responsibility, is there to channelize the material back into the ecosystem. And there are various instruments. And
Mhm.
then what we have is what is called as EPR credits. So you sell something, you get a credit, and you buy that credit. So these are the various mechanisms for the ecosystem of recycling, where the
Yeah.
extended producer's responsibility is a worldwide tool. And it is part of becoming soon a mandate the world over.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there is a lot to unpack there with the policies, the market mechanisms that today is at play, though in its initial stages, but it is likely going to increase or enhance or enable the ecosystem for recycling, which was once unorganized sector. The recycling sector would eventually get into mainstream because there is value in the kachra. But that very point that you made, who we call kachre walas, I mean, we are the ones who manufacture them, they're just collecting there, is a very good insight, and it is correct. If you really look at it is the right way. So the waste pickers play a very vital role, but they are one part of the entire value chain that you just highlighted. Let's now switch gears, Dr. Samir, because when we set out to discuss, we wanted to discuss on the UN Global Plastics Treaty as well. So we will now dive into the UN Global Plastics Treaty, what it means for Indian businesses now. So my first question here is this: that for a business leader who has only heard the term UN Global Plastic Treaty is passing, how would you explain this in plain language and what this treaty is trying to achieve?
Uh, to begin with the story, every year we, in the month of September, see our global leaders going to New York to address the UN gathering. You see
Right.
our presidents, our prime ministers, our head of states, our head of nations, or our external affairs ministers addressing. That is the United Nations General Assembly.
Mm-hmm.
United Nations has many branches. One of them we know is the World Health Organization. Other one is UNIDO. The third most important branch of United Nations is United Nations Environment Program. So all the environment activities are done under this program. We know that the United Nations is headed by a Secretary General. Then we have a Deputy Secretary General. And for these various organizations, there is an Under Secretary General, who
Mm-hmm.
the head of that organization is led by a number 3 ranked official who is the Under Secretary General and also the Executive Director of the program. So
Mm-hmm.
United Nations Environment Program is a big organization and activity of the environment of United Nations. And people don't know that the United Nations Environment Program, the office or the headquarters of UNEP, as it is known as, are in Nairobi in Kenya. And that is established in 1972. Because the UN is having so many branches, and in New York, it is just the headquarters. But the various sub-offices are in the various other nations. And why do they choose Nairobi, Kenya? Because they don't want to have everything in the developed world. That time, those countries were just coming out of their independence and making their mark or presence felt. So United Nations Environment Program, as I mentioned, is headquartered in Nairobi, Kenya, where there are other UN offices also, but there is a big campus. And as I mentioned, the United Nations Executive Director for Environment, she's a madam, she sits there. And they come to New York only for some work. And like I mentioned about the United Nations General Assembly, every second year, there's a United Nations Environment Assembly. And 195 countries of Earth, which are part of United Nations General Assembly or the UN, are also part of United Nations Environment Program. For a country like India, we have a representative of UN. So the ambassador of India to Kenya is also the ambassador of India to the United Nations Environment Assembly. So every country is represented to the United Nations Environment Program through its ambassador. And there is since this is environment, the nodal ministry is the Ministry of Environment of that country, whatever it is called as. In 2022, after the COVID pandemic, the first meeting was held online. And in March 2022, physical meeting of the United Nations Environment Assembly was held. And there, some resolutions are passed and some things are taken up for discussion. And during that UNEA assembly, a landmark resolution was passed by 187 countries present that time, that all the countries will work to negotiate what is called as a global plastic treaty, which will address the total life cycle of the plastics and the value chain, and to curb plastic pollution. To put it in very simple terms, we have what is called as the Paris Agreement and the various conventions. So this is a resolution that a United Nations Environment Program, all countries will negotiate to form what is called a global plastic treaty, which will be what is called as an ILBI, internationally legally binding instrument. So once that treaty is signed, it will have to be implemented in letter and spirit for all the countries to manage their plastic waste. Since 2022 till today, after a couple of months, what is known as the INC, the resolution state that we will form a group that is called the International Committee for negotiating this treaty. So these committees are basically made of the government representatives, and 5 sessions were there. Intergovernmental Negotiation Committee, that is called the INC. And the first INC meeting was held in Uruguay, then Paris, then Kenya, then South Korea, then Geneva. So every 6 months this was, and the treaty is negotiated. There are 7 days of high deliberations where there are delegates coming from all the countries. Beside these, who is allowed to take part is only the government delegation, but they are supported by the associations, the other NGOs. And the last such session was held in Geneva from 5th to 15th of August 2025.
25,
yeah.
Okay.
And here the deliberations take place, and they have come up with a paper. But since it's been 3 years, and the history behind the Paris Agreement, it took years to negotiate. The treaty is having a system like 3,500 delegates sit in what is called as the opening session, where the whole assembly is there, where the United Nations Executive Director addresses the session. And there are 2 wings. One is the chairman of the Global Plastic Treaty, and second one is the Executive Secretariat. So the chairman is the one who, like the speaker, conducts the session and where people talk. So this is a big document and being discussed and negotiated, and every word is important there. Now in this, the Global Plastic Treaty, which had come to a stage where it is a stalemate. And that stalemate is, there are 3 points. One is, they said, what is being said is, reduce the plastic production. Second one is, address the chemicals are concerned. See, plastics or polymers by itself, they are not converted to various forms unless you have chemicals or ingredients in simple language, which help to turn the properties to use. But at the same time, these chemicals of concern are one which affect the environment, which affect the human life. So addressing, there are over 10,000 such chemicals existing. And the third point where the treaty is stuck is, we are talking of a global plastic treaty where you have to manage the waste and take care of the environment, and recyclers have to do their part, and everything. Where will the money come from?
The financing.
Yes, you cannot expect, the system in a country is already stretched, and you're talking of adding something more. So that's where the treaty is still stuck, and deliberations are going on. And that is at the macro level. At the micro level, when it comes to we are talking of a recycler, we are talking of a kabadi wala, we are talking of a rack picker or a waste warrior, how will they get affected? We said that, Indian industry, recycling industry is there, EPR is there, but in a country like India, even today, 60 to 70% of recycling is in the informal sector. Getting them formalized is not easy. What will happen to them in the whole value chain? How will the person be affected? Today, 1 to 2% of the global passive population is rack picker. We say it is very easy to say, let's formalize it, let's do this. But on the ground level, it is still time before they get formalized and get in the system where they are equal partners in the whole ecosystem.
That's true.
The taxations, the environmental laws, all the informal sectors, they are not able to follow that. The governments try to go a step, do something, we will do it. But, it's the baggage of the past that it is not possible to leave that.
That's true.
The business is still carried out in cash. Taxes are avoided. The recycling facilities are not following the pollution norms of the air water pollution. So it will be a remarkable effect, and that treaty gets implemented, everyone will get affected. There will be ban on certain plastics. There will be a lot of regulations there, and we are talking here of the international effect.
That's true. But Dr. Swami, sorry to break your flow there. But when you mention about a stalemate, given that there's these 3 key points that you highlighted, the chemicals that is being used, reducing the plastic production, and the financing part of it, do you see a way out of this stalemate? If yes, how do we?
Yes. See, I will tell you the other part also to answer all you talked about too. I'll talk from the beginning. See, today we have a lot of countries having the crude oil as a base to polymer. And today we are in a crisis where we see, you and me also feel it sometimes. We are in a crisis where oil is not available, gas is not available.
True that.
The world is not yet ready, or there is now so much material there that we can just wish away the crude oil away, and we have not. So this is a fine example of the treaty, how it is stuck. This is we are depending on oil. A country like ours depends on 80% of oil imports and gas. So if we suddenly decide to cut the oil, then NAFTA, after the polymers are found. So how do we address that situation? No one has given a deep thought to it. Just cutting down on production is not going to happen. If those countries which are cutting down their production, how will we get affected? Our daily life will get affected. That was it for point number 1. Point number 2 is chemicals of concern. See, when things began, people started using all sort of chemical, and there was no regulations as such.
Mm-hmm.
Over a time, one sees the impact of chemicals, whether it be in daily use. Like, today, classic example is, we are in the mango season in India.
Yeah.
You just put some chemicals to ripen the mango.
Yeah.
Is this not a chemical of concern?
It is.
So addressing, imagine that more than 10,000 chemicals are there, where now regulation has started, and not all chemicals are bad, but need to classify that, make them properly classified, find alternatives to them. We are talking of chemicals there, but we just cannot wish that away. They might be causing harm to the environment, but are there alternatives to that? Do we have a system to replace that? And again, that is controlled by some countries produce that in high number. What if suddenly the chemicals stop? The whole polymer chain will stop. We will not be able to produce granules. So that is point number one. And it's all about money, my honey.
Yes.
Paisa kidhar se aayega? So when the third session happened, there were 26 financial institutes, including the World Bank and the likes like of that, where these world organizations finance the countries and to set up projects. We have no for that, but the 26 world organizations were called in and said, this is the money you will have to put in to finance the system. Where will, we are, to give it in very simple terms, you live in Bangalore, the corporation of Bangalore is already much stressed of funds for managing the waste. कितना भी पैसा डालो, waste is not managed, and you are further telling कि ये plastic का put more money for this. So where will the money come from? The money, if the funds will come from the agency will give it to the government, and the government will. Yeah. So it is very easy to say for the developed countries, oh, you do it that way and all that. But what about countries like who are developing or on the developing path?
Yeah, yeah.
That's
The,
when
the global south always finds it difficult to finance projects like this. I mean, it is for the Western countries, it is comparatively easier given that they have the financing ability of that. But for countries that are developing, the global south always finds it difficult and challenging. But tell me, Dr. Joshi, that how is this global plastic treaty going to affect Indian businesses? Do you see if it were to come to play, would it affect businesses? If yes, how much?
if नहीं वो होने वाला है ही, because if not now when, the things are on a it will happen, but everything takes its own time.
Right.
And I will like to point out here, India has taken a very nice stand there. India wants a consensus, not voting. Even the former chairman of, he has resigned due to some issues. He put it very nicely. Nothing is agreed till everything is agreed. It is very easy at this moment to pass the treaty in whatever form it is, where certain people get affected by a majority or so. But they don't. The United Nations wants consensus on this, so that it becomes a treaty where everyone respects it. You don't force on it. And how it affects India is, the country like India, per capita, that is per year, per person, we consume 15 kgs of plastic today.
Right.
1.48 billion and still growing. If you say cut down on plastic production, how will you do that? We are seeing the plastic packaging, how it is affecting our daily lives. So you just cannot wish it away for the packaging of the other industry. Second thing is where to get the money to finance all this. So the systems are being put in place on EPR. Regulation is coming, and slowly the mindset of the people to first follow EPR, which is an instrument of not India. It is an instrument of the treaty, to put in place systems for collection, to put in place systems for accountability, to put in place systems for the recycling and the recycled content, because aage jaake we very well know that oil production has to be decreased. Then we depend on alternate sources of fuel.
Right.
So India it is going to affect you and me and everybody in the whole value chain. But at this
Right.
moment, we in India are used to the fact कि देखते हैं, until the last moment we do not take the actions.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
slowly, when the treaty is being signed, the small things, the dots are already being there and just connected through the policies, through certain instruments, collecting the plastic. When we say of having the recycled content, where will the material come from? If you and me do not segregate at home, gila kachra de, how will you recycle it? So the
True that.
mindset changing, continual education, all is part of the macro problem or the solution being foreseen, and this will be reflected in the global plastic treaty. None is
Yeah.
to escape.
Right.
Some people in Africa do not know the E of the EPR. There is no system, but at the same time, they are going to be there because plastics are there everywhere.
Absolutely. I mean, when you mention this problem of plastics, it is not just one household that is going to be affected. Pretty much all of us. I mean, when you say 15 kg per capita consumption in India, in the developed nations, it will be even higher than that.
100. US is 100.
Wow, wow, that's a big gap there. So clearly, our dependency on plastics is there. So taking it away from the equation is not a thing to be done within a few years of time. It might take decades to get there. But even to be getting there, we need an alternative to plastics, which presently we do not have. Though there are certain bioplastic, biofilms, but the limitations are there on only certain applications that it's relevant. My immediate thought is this: if the UN Global Plastic Treaty were to come to play, it will definitely bring risks and opportunities along with it for
Very well
Indian
said.
business. So I mean, if you were sitting across the table with the CEO of a company, and talking to him or her about the plastic treaty that is going to come into play, what would be your top three risks and top three opportunities for their profit and loss or competitiveness over the next decade, Dr. Joshi?
We are seeing laws, number one, laws being made for EPR.
Mm-hmm.
No, as I mentioned, EPR last time also is not related to plastics. It is coming for everywhere. Imagine, yesterday I was talking to a car manufacturer. Is he under the obligation of EPR? Yes.
Yes.
The car manufacturer is packing. When we buy a new car, you see the seats are covered in plastics.
Right.
So what to do of that plastics? The car manufacturer is in.
Mm-hmm.
And the dichotomy is, have you ever seen that? The smell of a car is so nice to see or feel. Touch the nice car
The new
and
car.
the smell. Yeah, new car.
Yeah.
And that seat is packed in a plastic which is virgin. Do we need that? So when you said what is going to affect, do we really need a car seat to be packed in virgin plastic when it is coming from the company to the dealer? So why not design for recycling, design for recyclability, design? That is the one thing where you can save your cost, number one. Second one is the obligation. Third one, it is going to be compulsory. Third one is how you have a chain, or how does the company ensure that that mechanism is followed. And the risk is you're talking of sustainable materials. We are seeing taking an example of a car manufacturer. Car never had recycled content, but now they're voluntarily putting in recycled content. The mat which we see in the car, that is made from recycled plastics.
Right.
Saving the materials. And even a car that is costly or the Benz or the BMW, they are talking of sustainable materials, and people want to see how sustainable you are as a company. So, sustainability is not just a word for the boardrooms or the company, it is implemented. I have seen a car in China. It's way beyond our imagination. A very high-end car having plastic mats and some of the components made from compostable plastics.
Compostable.
Yes, they are thinking of that. When the car is
Going
sent
to be
back,
discarded.
they will take it and compose the plastic. If that is going to affect that, they will not recycle. They'll talk of compostable plastics. The responsibility of the car that when you give up, that component is going to be harmful, and we are talking of chemicals of concern. So we are talking of that plastic being made by compostable plastic to be composted. Look at the level of thinking that goes into it. But as I said in the earlier part also, sustainability comes at a cost.
Surely.
Ultimately burdened to the consumer. But the way things are, someone will have to pay.
Yeah, I mean, I over the years have, I mean, being a practitioner of sustainability, over the years have come to this consensus that most companies view sustainability as a cost center, but it need not necessarily be, because when you talk about the policy changes that are going to come by, I mean, staying relevant, it becomes extremely crucial. And the very example that you now quoted about the automotive company, having more recycled content in your production is a more sustained supply chain. It is more reliable. You're not always depending on somebody else. That's one. Two, of course, yes, it adds to the branding of the company also, because if a company is environmentally friendly, which means you're preserving the environment for the next generations. I think everything that we do is for the generations to come after. So that will only enhance the brand value of the company itself. Plus, on top of that, putting your head not just on the performance of the car, but also of the production quality and the design for environment, right? Bringing in that voice adds so much more value with the innovation, the design, the production of the vehicles itself. So when if and when this very policies is going to come to play, I think waiting until then might not be the smartest thing to do. Perhaps companies have already started or began doing these exercises in-house, where they have started including a certain percentage of recycled, concentration in the manufacturing, and maybe this numbers might go up. But I was surprised to know that within automotive company there are compostable plastics that are now being utilized. That's very fascinating, because the application of composting plastics, as far as I see it, is relevant in the packaging industry, where thin films you eat, you discard, or maybe waste bins, the compostable plastics are used there. But I think innovation happens on all stages. Yeah. Right. But again, this policy is still certain. I think we are still talking very early. Maybe it has to see a few iterations before it sees a completeness. So there is still a distance to cover. But if a company were to prepare uh, to leading up to the plastic treaty or any policies that are going to come to play, I mean, right now EPR is already at play. Are there any suggestions or recommendations that you would give to the top management to integrate or start thinking in this direction? What are the things that they could possibly do?
So, as I mentioned, the automobile companies are doing it voluntary in the moment.
Right.
They are not waiting for the government to get in that law.
Hmm.
That is something, redesigning your systems. I mentioned about a simple example like this car seat cover.
Mhm.
Why is that to be packed in a virgin bag? You can have a recycle bag. You don't sit on that same plastic after time. After 3 months, 4 months, you remove that. And no one tells you that. It is not good for you to sit on a plastic
See.
the squish seat which is covered. So,
Right.
designing, first is designing at the right place. Innovation in designing for recycling, designing for sustainability, collection of take back of your. There is some two-wheeler company which is taking back. They have their outlets which are taking back some of the components of the
Yeah.
spark
The
plug.
buyback policies. Yes.
Not buyback. I'm not going to buyback. People
Mhm.
are voluntarily giving spark plugs there.
Okay.
We are talking of certain spare parts in the car or the two-wheeler, which may not necessarily be bad. We replace it. You know how we replace the engine oil under when we go for our car servicing? And that used oil is now being recycled and used for another application. The spare parts are redone.
Remanufacturing.
Yeah, re-engineering, not meaning they are repaired. The right to repair. You recently, we have heard of regulations in Europe where your mobile phone has to be used for a number of years. You know, there is a policy. We usually change it after every 1 or 2 years, and we do not get the components. The right to repair says that a mobile phone should have be there at least for 4 or 5 years, and you get the components also.
Right.
That's of the conservation of resources. So small things companies are following, and sustainability. You said it is being there, and thinking sustainability, thinking of first is the mindset change and doing small things as we do. Close a running tap.
Yeah.
Not use plastics where needed. Collect back the plastics. These are small things that a company at the macro level, micro level, and at the macro level, like taking back the good components, where which can be reused for certain applications
True.
without compromising on the quality.
Yeah, I think the first part is definitely the education part. I mean, bringing the awareness within the team. Yeah, educating of your employees on the need, demands, the requirements for sustainable actions. Maybe that's one. Two is building the necessary resources and the skill sets in house. Where so far the design was just maybe done on certain parameters. Now you need to add a parameter for design for environment. Maybe that's an add-on skill designers could include in their initial stages of production. I mean, when you did mention about Europe, I worked on my master thesis around the same concept of this theme called as targeted recycling. So I worked with Volvo. Volvo identified that there is this part component called as a diesel particulate filters. DP filters, and I mean, when I'm talking about Volvo, we are referring to the Volvo trucks. And what they identified is these trucks have this particulate filters have built with platinum and palladium in it. So these are high value materials. So what was once a discarded Volvo truck, now there was a buyback policies or what we call as reverse logistics that was included, where the end user could get a certain amount back or maybe a certain discount on his next purchase for returning a product. And the kind of work that we did was something on the electronic components of the entire vehicle. Because if you put the electronic components entirely put together, there is high value of certain critical materials, certain high value metals that are present in the mix. So when we shift this focus from viewing something as a waste to viewing it as a resource, I think it is very natural for businesses to see these vehicles at the end of life as not as a cost, but rather as a resource. So that's
Absolutely.
yeah. So perhaps that's a mind shift or a mindset shift that has to happen in the coming years. And I think automotive sector is already working in this direction. But automotive is just one industry. There are whole lot of industries that are out there, including food and beverage, steel, cement, everything out there, and all industries are dependent on plastics. So a lot of opportunities. Yes, I think we both see that clearly, but at the same time, it brings a lot of risks also, and the risks would only increase perhaps if the management is not bringing in changes to adhere to this new changing times. Because if you do business as usual, perhaps you'll be dinosaur in the changing times, right? What
You
do you
also
do?
came up with a point. There are certain regulations now being put in place that if you want to export to Europe, you have to follow certain
Yeah.
CBAM regulations,
Yes.
emissions, your product quality. So whether you like it or not, it is going to affect everybody. The principal manufacturer of the car perhaps is mandated by that, but he is going to ask his supplier to follow that voluntarily, put in place those
Absolutely.
systems.
Absolutely. I mean, I was just thinking parallelly on those lines as well when you brought that out, because off late we are getting more inquiries, more questions around CBAM, because what started in early 2020s, I mean, there was a clear indication set out by the European uh, Union that the CBAM is going to come into play, and there was a time provided for all the players to prepare themselves for the changing times. And like many out there, even the Indian manufacturers uh, assume that this is a policy that is going to just fade away with time. So all that time that was provided was not utilized. Nobody measured their carbon emissions. Nobody did anything in that direction. Now, when it is entering a definitive phase where numbers are going to convert into money or euros, it is impacting businesses, because for a European importer, it is no more feasible to source their materials from a high carbon intensive manufacturer where he is going to pay a higher value there. Rather, he would switch to elsewhere who has at least the numbers with them. So I think for those listening into the podcast, maybe it is a reminder call that policies sometimes might fade away, might change direction. But when there are certain signals that is given out by the agencies globally, it would be smart to pick out on things or start mending ways where it might not affect your business in the coming years.
I
Great.
would like
Yeah.
to I would like to remind you, sorry for interrupting. We are talking of, our government is signing treaties where there is no duties there. We are
Right.
seeing the opportunities for exporting to various markets now.
Hmm.
And that is not going to be just chalo, bhej do. It is not going to be
No.
that. Everyone will see that. I'm reminded of a small example which I'd like to quote. I had a friend who was supplying plastic cages for bearings. That is very, very unique product 8 years ago, where the cages for the bearing are made from plastic. He did it in Pune,
Hmm.
and for a very big company. And that was the first international company making making those cages. And he passed through all the audits. Even the auditors from the foreign, the principals came from Europe and all. And do you know where he got stuck?
Hmm.
Everything cleared, and now yes, you are in the audit. Yes, you are a qualified supplier. He got caught in this, that he was having a 12-hour shift instead of 8 hours. And they said, you are not paying that according to the 12 hours, you're paying them
Yeah.
for extra.
Yeah.
And he had to
Labor policies.
demonstrate that for 3 months before
Hmm.
that. So, as you rightly said, policies will not fade away. They will come up or surface in some form or the other when you want to make your market the globe as a village.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. I think it could be an alarm or a wake up call for many who are listening in. Let me ask you this. Like one pain point that you did mention is a financing part, because everything needs money, and if a global plastic treaty were to be done, a lot of financing is definitely required. So, do you see a future where access to capital like loans, bonds, or private equity will be directly influenced by how companies align with the plastic treaty outcomes, similar to climate and ESG are already shaping the finance today? So how should Indian companies start preparing for the shift? Do you see that happening?
I like to remind you again, we have a lot of conferences and during the pre-pandemic times, and now then there's the lull, and now again back to the conferences. During 2020, the era of 2020, 18, 20, a lot of conferences, and to my plastic conferences, not a single person from finance used to turn up. We invited him, a banker, bolo, and now we are seeing them coming into our programs. We are seeing them taking notes. We are seeing them talking about finance, because now they see the sector. Some of the financing institutions have a climate fund.
Right.
And when we are talking of our players to be on the global front, money is going to be needed. Bank finance is one thing, but there are certain financial companies, there are funds who are investing in India, and they have made money. I have, this company started in 2018 or so, when the EPR laws were put in 2016, and the things started growing. And some of the companies which are early investors, now the stage has come, they're exiting after making a profit. So financial instruments is a major thing, where the money, not only the bank, but private equity, HNI equity, debts, all these are playing a structure, and we see global funds companies coming to India. We have some own companies in India also financing, and the mindset of an entrepreneur is also changing. As I had mentioned, that in the plastic industry is most of MSME and single unit, and there is an emotion attached to it. I am a proprietor of my company even today, and I would not like to give up my 100% share. May
Takes
say
to
this
someone.
आपको दिया. What is
Hmm.
it? But the mindset is changing.
That's
And
true.
the plastic industry is slowly picking up, and I'm seeing the investments coming, and people are taking that risk. And when we have to go to that level,
Hmm.
this is happening, but it is still in the nascent stage where we need a combination of both the financer as well as the recycler understanding each other,
Yeah.
because the
Yeah.
plastic industry has not grown in a very structured way as other industries. But
Right.
this is
Right.
happening. Microfinance still remains a hurdle to the recycling industry, because the recycling industry has certain negatives, like, are you following the norms? Are you pollution compliant? Are you
Yeah.
following the regulations? So no investor would like to put in money where these things are not there. So
True that.
it is
True that.
it is happening.
Yeah, but I mean, very clearly, financing seems to be or is a very vital pillar of this entire treaty. But if you were to give me a timeline, Dr. Samir Joshi, since you are a part of this entire conversation, how long or how many years are we talking if a global plastic treaty were to be formulated? 5 years, 10 years?
Less than that. If nahi, it is, but it will take some time. But
Yeah,
and why we want to allow it to take its time? Because we want a treaty which is robust and which aligns when sabka saath, sabka vikas. Everyone is included in that. We don't want any countries to say later that, "Arey, nahi, we will not follow that," because we are talking here of an internationally legally binding
right,
instrument.
right, right.
We want to
Uh,
implement it in letter and spirit.
Yeah, I think you're giving me a good segue to the next part of the conversation as well. Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas, because the next part of the conversation is we're going to talk about the Vikasit Bharat theme, 2047. That is 100th years of India's independence. So my first question here is that when you look at India's recent budget, which focus on waste management and circularity, thousands of crores for waste and resource management have been allocated. What are the most meaningful signals you see for entrepreneurs and investors here?
Circularity, making a circular business. It may not be plastics, but
Hmm.
circularity, embedding sustainability. We talk of clean tech companies investing into the systems where we are not talking of AI, we are talking of management of the waste. Can we
Right.
do it locally? And how do we manage the legacy waste? We see we talk proudly of 1.48 billion people, and we have to also remember that our population is going to grow. That population is going to, for they are young and they have a dream, but the same young and dream is going to convert to old people after some time. The waste generation is going to increase. The
Hmm.
waste uh, treatment is going to be challenging. The consumption of plastic is going to increase with the changing lifestyle. We
Hmm.
talk of AI. Let's talk of HI, human intelligence first. And when we talk of waste, I would like to remind you something while before going into the future, I like to take you to the past. In 1972, the then Prime Minister Indira Gandhi ji and United Nations session had said, we are talking of pollution and environment, but are not poverty and mismanagement of our resources are not the greatest polluters?
Yeah.
She talked of that, poverty. People are being lifted out of poverty. When the lifestyle increases, we generate more waste. Isn't it time we control that waste? We
Hmm.
are talking in foreign countries where they will be not be able to bury their waste. In India, we are also going to do that. Land
Hmm.
masses are not going to be available for that. We
Hmm.
see of technology, we talk of clean tech. We have to manage our waste, and which is going to be more and more important. And as we go to Vikasit Bharat, first let us remember to first respect our waste, reduce our consumption, at the same time be responsible to what we generate.
Right.
And the startups are playing an important role here, converting the waste to resources. And the recycled content increasing, and the recycled industry, from the throw to the repair, reuse.
Mhm.
It is very easy to say that नई bike चाहिए. What will you do about the old bike?
Yeah.
You see laws that after 15 years, the vehicle will have to be scrapped. If someone wants to keep it, he has to pay an extra tax. So the national resource policy as such is coming, where we are going to be responsible for our consumption as well as our waste generation.
Right.
Vikasit Bharat, Vikasit Bharat.
Sorry, when we talk about this, clearly there are pockets of opportunities for entrepreneurs and investors in this entire uh, value chain. But if you were today wanting to start a business, what pocket would you pick?
We talk about I'm going to the macro first. We talk about the Indian $5 trillion economy. The Indian $5 trillion economy, we are inching towards that. Not inching, we are running towards that. The world waste management is going to be a $5 trillion opportunity by 2029. Very much on that. And then coming to the micro level, a young entrepreneur, a young person, a young startup. India has, from some reports, it is number one, some reports say number two or number three in the startup ecosystem. And in my sector of waste, plastic management, waste management, there are over 200 startups who are now maturing through this. And the
200.
entrepreneur begins 200 plus who are maturing, I'm saying. And the young entrepreneur or a startup, he begins with developing an app, collecting his, connecting the dots and starting. But it is not only that, it is the sustainability angle, the finance angle. So the opportunity is there in startups and in the companies also. If you do not want to do a business where these opportunities, I said, designed for recycling, then manufacturing for recycling, and there are specialized now curriculums coming up. I would not say as a degree, but you have that component, the
Right.
sustainability. So
Right.
you're on the path.
So applications could be, developing apps could be one area. Coming with the tech for managing waste could also be an area. Education could also be an area, that is coming up with courses or course materials for educating maybe the mainstream businesses, or maybe sector specific businesses could also be something that that entrepreneurs could consider doing. But are you aware of any funds that startup entrepreneurs or startup founders could
Yes,
take
yes,
advantage of?
yes. There are funds there, and we have a lot of incubators also. I'm associated with one such incubator. I proudly like to take their name, T Hub in Hyderabad. They are the world's largest incubator
Very
at
interesting.
one place. The likes of Zomato began their story there. And we have tech startups there, and I'm a mentor there, and I proudly say that 6 to 7 people whom I have met, and instead of me mentoring them, they have mentored me. I learned from them, and one or two such startups, they have now reached Saudi Arabia, and the Saudi Arabia government is funding them for their waste management story there. So the startup which began here is now put up in Saudi Arabia, and Saudi Arabia government is, so the opportunities are there. And we have these startup incubators and policies there, but they are not so easy. A lot of ideas are there, and one has to go to a structured way to it, where to get to that, because you do not try to solve the same problem. First, identify if it is a problem. Then second one, if you want to be a startup, you see the problem might be good on paper, but does it make business sense? At the end of it, you have to sustain. So we've talked about so many startups. The other startup story is also sad. The startups have to shut down, close, merge because they did not get this. So this is evolving, but one has to go through that. face.
Yeah. I mean, a startup ecosystem is a risky thing, but if the founders have a safety net, maybe access to funds or something like that makes them much more uh, optimistic about taking that leap of faith. Perhaps the governments and the system should be doing that, and I think the Indian government is building that ecosystem here in India by providing funds, incubation centers. I mean, you really did mention the name of T-Hub. So very, very clearly that is there. But you have given me a very optimistic outset for the startup or the founders who are wanting to start something out in the waste management sector, specifically with all these policies, EPR, the Global Waste Treaty, all this coming up.
I would change your word to realistic, not optimistic.
Realistic. Okay.
Yeah.
let's switch that word to realistic there. So Dr. Samijusha, I have two last questions. So my question is, I would want you to look into the future. So when you imagine a Bharat 2047 with a mature circular plastics ecosystem, what non-negotiable milestones on infrastructure, behavioral change, technology, or policies must we hit in the 2030s to make that vision credible and not just a slogan?
As I mentioned, let me talk about the micro picture. Laws in Europe where say we will not have dump in the not sending dump to the landfills.
Right.
So some of these policies are being done in our country.
Mhm.
Second thing is continual education, harping. That's why we are working on the generation where the generation is having a shift in change of not littering.
Mhm.
Third one, non-negotiable is, and which has to be, dealt with that sincerity is not littering.
Mhm.
Getting, you're talking of circularity, where in the circularity, the word itself says that everyone has a responsibility from you, me, to the person in the value chain to set that right. If I gave a soiled plastic bag, it cannot be recycled. If I throw something on the road, it is not
Mhm.
acceptable. The infrastructure is there. We see the new infrastructure in place, but using it properly first is respecting that we have to do this. And even today we have to continuously educate to segregate. So, and I didn't perhaps mention it in our last talk, but first April 26th, the new solid waste management rules have come. They have
Right.
evolved over time where segregation and basic things have to be followed and respected, and that is not negotiable. For a country to prosper, we have to, we are ranked on a world index for littering also, and we are at a very bad level there.
We're taking the top ranks
Yeah, for the other, we are talking of sending man to
for
the
the
moon.
wrong reasons.
Yes. Why not, talk about that also, the basic thing, roti, kapda, makan ke saath swachhata ki seva. No, and there is something not new. The rich culture of India, forget about 2047. Mohenjo-daro, Harappa. I come from the land of Maharashtra where Shivaji Maharaj, you've heard of Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj, even those forts had sustainability. The
Yeah.
Mohenjo-daro Harappa civilization had the drainage and sanitation systems, and they followed it that time. And why have we left it now?
Yeah. I think those questions are something that are very persistent, and I honestly had this conversation with a human behavior scientist by name Dr. Sheng Wei, and we discussed on the same lines. What happens to the civic sense? The same person in a different country acts differently when back in his home country he acts differently. What is the reason? And yeah, I mean it is very fascinating to learn the human behavior, the science behind it, and all of that. But I like to change my word to realistics. But I think the reasons that you've given me are very realistic, very optimistic. But how do you think about when we talk about infrastructure? Do we have the entire tech that is required for segregating and managing waste at scale here in India, or are we dependent on countries outside India? What are your thoughts on that?
I will again go back. You have heard of waste to energy plants.
Right.
No waste to energy plants have been successful in India. Do you know why?
Mm-hmm.
Because we got the imported technology and tried to adapt it to our Indian technology. The garbage of the waste is different from the garbage of India. The garbage of Pune and garbage of Bangalore is different. The technology is there, the mindset is there, the Indian conditions are being developed, but the policies and suiting it to the local environment is needed. All the technology, trust me, is available in India. Or if it is not available, we have the route of collaborations. And for me, this is something very, very nice to see happening. When I've been working in this sector for 10 years, I have seen some 3, 4 foreign companies putting up Indian operations. They see the opportunity in India. So that company which was dash 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 Europe has started 100% Indian operations. They see the market here and
Yeah.
are putting up their plants here.
Right, right. I mean, given the scale of population that we have, waste is something that is going to be there. I think that the scale of waste is only going to increase in the coming years, and as the country becomes more richer, the consumption patterns are also going to see an hike, which means more waste to be handled, more opportunities to be there. So a very realistic picture that are painted there. On top of it, adding a layer of policies, global treaties which will compel businesses, OEMs to work in a certain direction, will allow for more stricter norms, more thoughtful approaches to design, where design for environment is also considered in-house. I have one last question for you, Mr. Dr. Samir Joshi. To wrap up our conversation, what do you see are the biggest gaps in India's plastic circularity ecosystem? Is it technology? Is it policy? Is it market? And how do consulting partners like Carbon Mandal add value in closing those gaps and accelerating progress? This is a question from me as a part of Carbon Mandal.
Policy is there, implementing in the right spirit is there. Second is awareness. A lot of people do not have the awareness. I really congratulate you to Roshan that you have taken this initiative, which is part of not your business, but your passion of doing a podcast where you are making people aware of the problem. And Carbon Mandal is doing something. And first is anything, you learn and unlearn and relearn. You have learned sustainability. You are seeing how it is happening. You are changing your systems, and each one in that value chain has a role to play. And I am positive that young people, I call you young because you have a black beard, and I am here.
A little gray hair also. Yeah,
I'm antique, but you are the one who are driving change, and you are the force for the Vikasit Bharat. And with your thoughts, with your actions, we can certainly lay claim to your future and a Vikasit Bharat more exciting and brilliant than our past.
Thank you for the kind words. And honestly, as you rightly said, we do this podcast as a way of starting conversations that could lead better, more meaningful conversations in the direction as we head towards the 2047 mark. A lot of pointers that we discussed in the entire podcast, both part 1 and part 2. We looked at your journey. We looked at the problem of plastics and the opportunities that plastic brings, because plastic is very integral to the entire society that we today have. There is a very high dependence on that. We did talk about the aspects of managing plastics and the way to look at plastics, which is reviewing or viewing something as not as a waste but as a resource, where we could perhaps lead to national resource policies someday. You also gave a lot of insights into the UN policies, the United Nations Environmental Program, and the Global Plastic Treaty that is right now being drafted, and the implications it will have on businesses. So how businesses can, start shifting or start making little changes in their system so that they can accommodate the changes that might come in the coming days. We also looked at the Vikasit Bharat theme, where you have given a realistic, I'm stressing on that, but a very realistic outlook on how Indian businesses, startup ecosystems can flourish and take advantage of in this entire scheme of things, along with the problem of financing. I think certain aspects are yet to be addressed in the coming years. But Dr. Samir Joshi, thank you so much for your time. It was an absolute pleasure engaging with you over 2 podcasts. So we have spent roughly more than 3 hours of time talking to each other. Would you like to have any last parting words?
दिल में सच दिमाग में इंडिया.
Sorry, I do not catch
दिल में सच और स्वच्छ दिमाग में इंडिया.
Dil mein sach aur swachh, dimag mein India. I think that's very nationalistic, along with the right message that I've given there. So let me give a quick outro into the entire conversation. So Dr. Joshi, thank you so much for a deeply insightful conversation. We have seen that India's plastic challenge is enormous, but so are the opportunities. Key takeaways that you have given: bringing industrial experience into sustainability can drive practical solutions. Aligning with global rules like plasticity will be crucial, and investing into a circular business model could unlock trillions in value. For our listeners, remember, sustainability is not just about compliance, it's about leadership and innovation. If you want to build a robust sustainability and ESG based strategies for your company or tap into circular economy opportunities, Carbon Mandal's experts are here to help. Visit www.carbonmandal.com to learn more. Dr. Joshi, it's been a pleasure. We will be dropping the description or the link to his LinkedIn profile in the description of YouTube. Thanks for sharing your journey and insights on the carbon circle. To our audience, thank you for listening. We hope today's honest conversation inspires you to think differently about plastics and to act on solutions we discuss. Until next time, keep leading on sustainability. Thank you so much, Mr. Dr. Joshi. Thank you.
Namaskar. Thank you.
Yeah.